welcome to episode 27 of the Painting Experience podcast. On the podcast, founder Stewart Cubley explores the potential of the emerging field of process arts and shares inspiration from his ongoing workshops and retreats. Have you ever wondered what would happen if you said yes to everything in your life, even for a day? Process painting offers a remarkable opportunity to practice saying yes. Today, Stewart talks about why you might want to give it a try.
There's a big yes required in the act of process painting. It's asking you to say yes to your experience, moment by moment, brush stroke by brush stroke. Can you say yes? And can you say yes to this? And then this? And then this next color and this next shape. Can you say yes? And of course, we can't. We have in ourselves a lot of no's. And the no's arise very quickly. And we say, well, I can say yes generally, but not to this part. No, this is not what I should be doing. No, 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 no. I'm going to fix this. I have to get rid of this. I have to cover this. I'm going to start a new painting. It started out okay, but this is really not what I wanted. This is the confrontation in painting, of course. Can you say yes? Can you say yes to everything that arises? And there's part of us that balks at this, that we are so used to this habit of creating a positive and a negative and a like and a dislike and an acceptable and a not acceptable that this is radical. Actually say yes to everything? I mean, that's kind of crazy, isn't it? It would go nowhere, we would think. I mean, what would happen to us if we just said yes to everything? So that's really the challenge. That's really the question here in process painting. Are you interested in that experiment of saying yes? I mean, it's a rather controlled environment. It's not like a lot's going to go wrong and your life is going to go down the drain because you happen to say yes to one painting. It might be interesting to see what happens if you said yes to everything. And that means the no's as well. We don't know how to handle our no's very well. We say, well, I can partially accept this. All right, I'm going to learn about acceptance. I don't like this part, but I'm going to learn. I'm kind of a Buddhist by nature, and I'm working with acceptance. I'm going to see if I can learn to accept this. But when you think about it, that's a rather passive acceptance. That's a rather passive yes. It's not really a dynamic yes. That's not a participatory yes. There was a woman I've been working with online, and I noticed the other day she had these two signs next to her painting, one on either side. And I zoomed in and looked at them, and they both said the same thing. And they said, resistance equals yes. And I thought to myself, well, now there's a participatory yes. That's a real yes. That's an acknowledgement of the dimension of yes, because here is this resistance coming up in her experience, which we all know really well, and she's reading it as a yes. That's pretty powerful. That's a way to enter the experience. You see, the very act of saying yes is a way to enter into the nitty-gritty of it, how should I say, is a way of bridging the gap of duality. Because when we create a no, we create this division, we create this alienation in ourselves. There's what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. And then we struggle with it, and we think that we are going to solve it somehow by creating that alienation, and it just doesn't work. We create a problem. Okay, I've got this problem part of my painting. I really don't like this part of my painting. I'm going to have to work with it. And then we have an issue. Then we have an issue which needs to be solved, and our whole consciousness gets taken over by this problem. We're no longer saying yes. We're saying no to this, and that this has to be fixed before I can say yes. In the next painting, I'll say yes. Well, this doesn't really work. We end up spinning our wheels, and you'll notice the way that it takes form in the painting process is that there's a part of the painting we don't like, And we're either tempted to get rid of it, which we can do, we can cover it up, or even take a new piece of paper, but then we're just left with, okay, I've gotten rid of it, now what? We're kind of at ground zero again. Or we try to fix it, and of course when we try to fix it, it usually ends up looking worse. I mean, it looks fixed. It doesn't look authentic, it looks fixed. And then we still have a no. We're still left with a no. There's another way. And I think this is quite profound because it's not something that is part of our day-to-day experience. We don't really get what it means to say yes to everything, including the resistance, including the parts we don't like, including the feelings that are challenging that can come up. To say yes. I think our fear, there's many fears that are associated with saying yes, and that's what prevents us from doing it. Number one, if it's a feeling that we don't like, maybe it's sadness, maybe it's anger, maybe depression even, and grayness, we're afraid that if we say yes to it, to allow it, which means letting it into our experience, that it's going to get worse and that we're going to be overcome by it. And this is a common fear that shows up in the process. And it takes some courage then, and maybe a little life experience to have come to the point where you realize that your other ways of dealing with it and dealing with these feelings haven't really been productive, haven't been creative. They've kind of left you empty. And it takes some courage to say yes to these feelings. But then you'll discover that something else entirely happens. And the experience of saying yes to a difficult feeling, to a challenging feeling, is something quite revelatory. Something opens that is not at all what you thought it was. By the very act of bringing your attention to it and engaging it and saying yes to it in that way, it reveals itself as something more, something actually helpful to you, that it has shown up for a reason. So this is a pretty profound exploration then, if you start to realize this about saying yes. I think another fear that comes up to saying yes in our experience is that we will somehow lose any discriminatory intelligence that we have, that we'll lose our aesthetic ability to know what looks good and what doesn't look good and what's right and what's wrong. And we're very attached to that, actually. There's a strong ego attachment to this aesthetic and discriminatory function of the mind, the judging aspect of the mind. We're very attached to it. And we think that we would lose something essential if we let it go. So that becomes another confrontation in ourselves. That becomes another real challenge, is what happens if you actually dare to say yes. So here's this part of the painting that you're convinced is really a mistake. It was not really what you wanted to do, but sometimes people will tell me, well, this was not spontaneous. I did this in order to try to bring about an effect, and I know that it was just for the product, and therefore it's not valid. And so we want to reject that. We want to reject that happening, that experience that we've had. And we really believe it. We really believe that our aesthetic is telling us, and our discriminatory intelligence is telling us that we made a mistake. And so I'll often say to someone at that point, okay, I know you feel this way about it, but let's try an experiment. If you were to take a little brush right now, and you went into that area, that offending area, that area that you really are convinced is a mistake, and you gave it great care. I'm not saying you have to like it, but you gave it care. You acted with care. You brought a quality of care into the experience of working with it. And a little brush is a great way of doing that because you have to be precise. So you have to be careful in a way. Otherwise, if you have a big brush, you'll just kind of cover it up. So you have to bring a quality of care. And something magic happens then. Something incredible happens. By entering the experience, through entering that experience, a door opens. And you realize, wow, this is pretty cool. I'm not objecting to this anymore. This little brush is really getting into the experience of working with this area. And in fact, it seems like that's what it wanted all along. that my rejecting of it was actually underneath an inherent call to it. It was a callback to it. And my no's have the potential to become yeses. And this is really a powerful experiential understanding that comes out of process painting, is that our no's are potential yeses. And that these times that arise in us when we want to separate ourselves from the experience, we want to reject the experience, and therefore create ourselves separate from it, are actually invitations back to ourselves, back to the totality of our experience, back to an essential yes, an essential attitude and stance in life, which is about yes. And of course, we're going to get challenged by this. We are challenged by this over and over and over again, not only in painting. Painting, in a way, is kind of a training wheels experience. It's like a safe place to say yes. The stakes aren't that big, but in life, the stakes seem bigger. So this becomes an essential question that can be awakened in the painting process. What does it mean to say yes? Can I say yes? Can I say yes even here?
You can learn more about the painting experience and find a list of upcoming process painting workshops by visiting our website at www.processarts.com. If you enjoyed what you heard today, please share it with a friend. The theme music for this podcast comes from Stefan Jacob. We thank you for listening and hope you'll join us again soon.